Welcome on the pure wisdom chosen one. Some individuals sell gems for dust and then wonder why their palms remain empty. Foolish decisions have repercussions, and nothing bothers a person more than understanding they traded away a beautiful jewel for something worthless. Regret does not only murmur, it attracts and lingers. It burns like a never-fading scar. They believe they were playing you, but the joke was on them. They didn't just lose you. They have lost every blessing that came with you. See, when you are selected, you do not just stroll into people's life. You uplift them. You carry a force, a light, and a power that can transform nothing into anything. And when they turned on you, it was more than simply betrayal. They betrayed their own destiny. And to you, yes, you are the chosen one. This message is not for just anybody. If you've gotten this far, it implies you can feel it in your soul. You realize this isn't a coincidence. This is a confirmation. Your presence here feeds a larger movement than you think. So, if you're tired of letting treachery shake you, if you're ready to rise above what attempted to shatter you, press the like button, subscribe, and leave number 77 in the comments to claim your rebirth. Now, let's get one thing straight. Regret is more than simply a sensation. It's a slow-burning fire that will never die. It keeps them awake at night. It poisons their memories of you. It makes them ill to watch you thrive because they know they'll never get that version of you back. They believe they could replace you. But how can you replace the irreplaceable who will live on after you? It's like sipping out of a shattered cup. No matter how much they fill it, it always leaks. They groped for rubbish and called it treasure. And now they're suffocating on the agony of their own decisions. But this is something they didn't expect. You weren't just a gift. You were their test. The universe put you in their way to determine if they were worthy. And guess what? They failed badly. That door is now closed, locked, and sealed forever. The hands that previously deceived you are now trembling with guilt. The same voices that formerly criticized you now mumble your name in shame. The same hearts that took you for granted. They now mourn for what they have lost. Regret is a slow killer. It's waking up every morning knowing you've made the worst mistake of your life. It's witnessing your radiance from afar and knowing they'll never get near to it again. It's seeing you soar as they sink into the mess they created. And the worst part? They did this upon themselves. You don't need to seek vengeance. Their remorse is punishment enough. Life has a tendency to make individuals reap what they sow. Finally, there's the harvest. Oh, that's bitter. They're asking to go through the same door that they slammed in your face. But it is too late. The chosen ones, listen up. You were never intended to remain somewhere where you were undervalued. The refusal was the redirection. The betrayal was the catalyst. You did not lose anything. They did, and now they have to deal with it. They believed they had buried you, but they didn't realize you were a seed. And now you've grown into something they can't handle, something they can only appreciate from a distance. Being selected gives you more than simply the ability to endure. It is what you become, so let them regret it. Let them suffer silently. Allow them to see your success from the sidelines. Because while they're drowning in what-ifs, you're stepping into all that was intended to be. If you feel this way, and you know you're a chosen one, click the like button, subscribe, and remain locked in. Because this is not just a message. It is a movement, and we're just getting started. And now, let's take it step by step. Trust me, if you are a truly chosen one, you will not just wish to remain till the end. You will feel compelled to. Let's get started. First and foremost, they benefited from your light. Then cursed the darkness as you go. They chuckled when they made you believe you'd never leave. They're now crying into nothingness, realizing they were just sparkling, because they stood near your fire. There is nothing more harmful than a person who confuses mercy with weakness. A fool will sit at your table, consume the food you serve, revel in your company, and then turn around and spit on the hands that fed them. They assumed you were soft. They assumed you were foolish. They assumed you didn't see them playing both sides, smearing your reputation while smiling in your face. The worst error they made, however, was not treachery. It was expecting you'd remain. You weren't desperate for them. You were not missing anything. You weren't a lost soul asking for scraps. You were a godsend. You were the force. You were the one who held everything together. And when you went away, you did not just leave. You carried everything with you. They did not just lose a person. They lost their safety net, tranquility, and favor. And now they languish in the disaster they made, choking on the same falsehoods they used to tell about you. Regret is eating them alive, but their pride prevents them from admitting they attempted to replace you. Oh, they assumed it would be simple. They thought they might find another you, just as people discover spare change in their pockets. But what they never realized was that you were not ordinary. You were not average. You were not something they could pick up and drop anytime they wanted. And now, they are now trapped with the same emptiness that they intended to leave you with. They now see it, emptiness that cannot be filled. The absence is greater than they imagined. Their lives after you. It's like sipping out of a shattered cup. No matter how much they fill it, it always leaks. But let us be clear. You are not the only one suffering here. Yes, they are. You achieved a higher level. You soared above. So what's funny? They didn't see it coming. They were certain you'd always be waiting. They were so confident they had enough time to continue playing that they had no idea you were seeing them build their own grave. And you went away without looking back. They can feel it now. Oh, they feel it. The quiet. It is louder than any falsehood they have said about you. That gap is colder than every minute. They made you feel unwelcome. That regret. It's sharper than any knife they put into your back. But it's not just about them. This is about your selected one. You were never feeble. You were never desperate. You were never disposable. You were a lesson. They had to learn the hard way. So let them dwell with their regrets. Allow them to struggle with their demons. Allow them to ponder every night what life might have been like if they had only appreciated what they had. Because this is the truth. Some individuals only get one opportunity to stand alongside greatness. And if they blow it, they will never get another. And you finished being anyone's lesson. You're done being someone's second choice. You're done dimming your light so others may pretend to shine. Number 2, they believed dimming your light would make them shine. Now they are immersed in their own darkness. Jealousy does not build. It destroys. And the worst idiots are those who believe they can extinguish someone else's flame to make their own shine brighter. They couldn't take your radiance. You weren't trying too hard, being haughty or taking up someone else's space. No, you were simply being yourself. And that alone made them anxious. Every room you entered, the ambience changed. People have noticed you. People respected you. People flocked to you like moths to a flame. Not because you demanded attention, but because you had something unique, something they could not imitate. And it scorched them. Instead of viewing your presence as a signal to raise, elevate, and be inspired, they perceived it as threatening. Because every time you stepped in, you reminded them of their own lack of confidence, which amplified their anxieties. Your success made their shortcomings more difficult to overlook. Your brightness, it showed their shadows. They despised you for it. So, what did they do? They did what tiny people usually do. They spoke behind your back, made subtle digs at your confidence, and placed small doubts in your ear, expecting you'd shrink. They wanted you to be tiny. They wanted you to be uncertain. They wanted you to examine what had already been etched in your spirit. Because in their minds, if they could make you question yourself, they would finally feel powerful. If they could persuade you to lower your light, they would not have to confront their own darkness. And the irony? You never competed with them. You weren't racing. You weren't treading on anybody to make the argument that you were just being yourself. And it alone made them feel defeated. So they attempted to cut you out. They have deceived you. They turned against you, believing that removing you from the scene would allow them to shine. But it was the part they didn't understand. Light does not function that way. Your radiance did more than simply make you feel better. It improved everything around you, including them. And now, they now see it. Their world darkened as you went away. The attention they believed was intended for them, gone. The respect they thought they'd get after forcing you out, nowhere to be found, because they failed to comprehend that this light is not something you can take. It is something you develop. They never had it. So now they're trapped in the same darkness they attempted to dump you into, watching from the sidelines as you continue to rise, shine, and be all they once wanted to repress. And it burns because they believe that cutting you off would elevate them. It did not. They believed that slandering your name would bury you. It did not. They believed replacing you would be simple. It was not. They had front row seats to greatness. And rather of learning, they chose jealousy. And now they're sitting in the shadows of their own decisions, watching you shine from afar, knowing they'll never be near to your light again. And that's the part that hurts the most, since they'll never outperform someone who wasn't really competing with them in the first place. So let them dwell with their regrets. Allow them to confront their own demons. Allow them to deal with the repercussions of their own jealousy. Because you were never intended to be muted. You were never intended to blend in. You were never intended to shrink, just to make someone else comfy. You were supposed to shine. Number 3, they exchanged gold for sparkle. They are now left with just dust. Fools pursue fireworks, believing they will light up the sky forever. But real power, genuine triumph, that's a slow-burning fire that will never die. They believed they were winning. I thought they had it all figured out. I thought taking shortcuts, pursuing fast pleasures, and taking the easy way out was the wiser option. And you moved too slowly for them. Overly patient, overly intent on something. They lack the vision to comprehend. But that's the trouble with short-term thinking. They only see what's directly in front of them. They fail to anticipate the impending catastrophe. They don't comprehend that quick money evaporates even faster, and that empty relationships leave them hollower than before. Cheap triumphs never last. So they made their decision. They gambled against you. You were stable. You were creating something genuine. You weren't hurrying, since actual worth does not appear overnight. Building a good foundation takes time, but they were uninterested in patience. They weren't concerned with loyalty, legacy, or anything that needed work. They wanted the high, the phony applause, the easiest way out, the appearance of achievement without really completing the job. And for a time, it seemed like they were ahead. They boasted about their supposed wins, thrust their decisions in your face, and seemed to have outwitted you. They chuckled, assuming you were missing out. But life is a harsh teacher in reality. Reality always reveals the truth, because the fast victories are departed. The diversions they ran to were futile. The folks they selected over you have left. The chances they believed were better became dust. They felt they were moving forward, but they were really driving toward their own demise. And you weren't just waiting. You were growing. You were rising. You were putting in effort, staying faithful to the vision and going forward with purpose. And now you aren't simply surviving. You're prospering while others sit about, gazing at the wreckage of their own decisions. You are out here winning, and the greatest part? You did it the proper way. You did not take shortcuts. You did not abandon yourself in pursuit of fleeting pleasures. You create something genuine, and now that it's paying off, they can't take it. They assumed you were losing. They believed you were an idiot. However, when they see you succeed without them, without shortcuts, and without sacrificing your spirit, the weight of their decisions crushes them. Because this is the truth. Short-term victories matter nothing when you lose something valuable. They lost you. They did not just lose your presence. They lost the future that you brought with you. The achievement, the devotion, the genuine ties. The kind of foundation that may have propelled them beyond their greatest expectations. But they weren't patient enough to notice it. They weren't savvy enough to keep it. And now remorse is their only company. Because the worst type of misery does not include falling behind. It's realizing you have all you needed to win, but you tossed it aside. And now they have to watch you triumph from the sidelines while they fail to thrive. Because you stuck to the route. They're achieving success in ways they will never be able to replicate because they picked the fast track. And it resulted in a dead end. So let them regret it. Let them watch. Allow them to suffer the consequences of their own decisions. Because of you, you will never lose. You simply played the long game and won. Number 4, they betrayed you and forfeited their celestial protection. Some losses elicit more than regret. They are a curse. Betrayal isn't only about losing someone. It's about losing a favor, the protection and heavenly alignment that accompanied them. They felt they were just betraying you, simply lying, just scheming, simply turning their back on someone who has nothing but kind intentions. What they didn't comprehend was that betraying someone with a divine calling comes at a far higher cost than they had anticipated. See, when you are selected, you do not just stroll into people's life. You provide security, insight, and favor. Your presence is more than simply friendship. It's all about alignment. The blessings you carried were not solely yours. They poured over upon them. Doors opened for them not because they were unique, but because they were related to you. And they were too blind, arrogant, and hungry to see it. They misunderstood your presence for something ordinary, while in fact it was divinely designed. You were brought into their lives for a purpose, to lead them, to uplift them, to protect them against storms that they didn't see coming. But rather of cherishing it, they chose treachery. And that decision, it cost them everything, because spiritual alignment is more than just an intellectual idea. Its true favor is genuine. Protection is real. And when you betray someone with divine favor, you don't just end the relationship. You lose access to the power that accompanied it. And now they're experiencing it. The same doors that used to swing open for them now close, preventing them from seizing chances. Gone. The serenity they once enjoyed was overtaken by pandemonium. And no, this is not punishment. It is spiritual cause and effect. When you engage in deceit, choose disloyalty, or move against someone who was sent to elevate you, you go out of harmony. And the cosmos does not forget. They could attempt to act as if everything is okay. They could put up a show, pretend they're unconcerned, and attempt to persuade themselves they made the proper decision. But deep inside, they know. They sense the emptiness, the loss, and how things no longer seem to flow. Because you were more than simply someone. You were a force. When you departed, you carried your light with you. They now see you from a distance, observing you climb higher, live in your mission, and get gifts that they no longer have access to. Nothing disturbs a person more than the realization that they had divine favor standing right beside them. They tossed it aside. They believed they could betray you and go away unharmed. But karma never forgets addresses. Betrayal has repercussions, and those penalties always come due. Some individuals believe they can act carelessly, harm innocent people, and get away with it. However, they fail to see that when you betray someone with divine favor, you do not just lose them. You lose all that was related to them. They now sit in the same loneliness they attempted to leave you in. No peace, clarity, or alignment, only regret. What stings the most? Watching you grow, sheltered, and directed by the same favor they discarded, seeing you obtain benefits that were previously within their grasp. However, they are now unable to touch them. They made their decision, and the price was significantly more than they had anticipated. Some betrayals result in more than simply broken friendships. They cost futures. When you betray someone who is associated with the divine, you do not just lose them. You lose alignment with your own destiny. And it is a curse from which no one can recover. Number 5, they were given a blessing but mishandled it. They now have to deal with the repercussions. Some individuals do not lose because life is unjust. They lose because they were given the solution but decided to fail. You weren't simply another individual going through their lives. You were their test. Life does not put selected ones in people's paths by mistake. You were sent as a chance, a bridge to something bigger. You radiated knowledge, tranquility, and elevation in your presence. You were more than simply someone to know. You were someone to learn from, to develop with and build beside. But they didn't understand it. They did not comprehend the task. Instead of appreciating what they already had, they took it for granted. Instead of developing with you, they competed against you. Instead of seeing you as a unique gift, they saw you as an impediment. And life does not reward idiots. They had a fantastic chance to progress, level up, and experience the kind of connection that most people seek throughout their lives. However, their ego got in the way. Their greed had blinded them. Their anxieties caused them to undermine the very thing that was supposed to benefit them. They betrayed what was meant to cure them. And it was their worst error. See, when life brings a selected one into your life, it is never random. It's an opportunity to advance. It is a time when everything may change, and the whole cosmos is watching, observing how they manage things. Observe how they treat you. I'm watching to see whether they're ready for what they say they want. They were not. They assumed you were simply another individual, someone replaceable, someone they could toss away and then rediscover again. But now they see. They recognize that you were not simply another connection. You were the key to something larger. They realized that their treachery did not just terminate a relationship. It halted their own development. They realized that life does not only provide second chances. And once a chosen one moves away, they do not return. And that understanding is eating them alive because they are seeing your success. They are keeping track of your progress. They're watching you take on every possible adventure, but without them. And it stings, not only because you've moved on, not only because you've won, but deep inside, they realize they caused this on themselves. That is what remorse truly is, a slow-burning retribution. They are unable to flee. They lost the one person who really wanted to see them succeed, the only one who would have supported, encouraged, and exalted them. And now they're stuck navigating a life that no longer makes sense, because this is something they never realized. Your presence was the light that guided them. Without it, people get lost in their own darkness and existence. Life isn't letting them forget their mistakes right now. A reminder that every poor connection has a consequence. Every fruitless effort at replacing you. They should have learned their lesson the first time, because you were not their adversary. You were not their burden. You were their test, and they failed. They failed not because they lacked ability or opportunity, but because they allowed their demons to triumph. Every day, life reminds them of their loss. So let them regret it. Allow them to sit in solitude with everything they tossed away. Allow them to battle with the awareness that they may have had something true, uncommon, and wonderful. If only they grasp the task. And you do not look back. You don't degrade yourself because someone was too blind to realize your value. Because you were never the one to lose. They were ranked 6th. They exchanged their birthright for a bowl of desire. Now they are starving from their own remorse. Some people swap kingdoms for crumbs and wonder why they are still beggars. Lust is an inexpensive tactic, a mirage in the desert, a brief high that leaves only desolation in its aftermath. But idiots follow it like it's gold, unaware that they're sacrificing something eternal for something transitory. That is precisely what happened when they betrayed you. They weren't just walking away from a romance. They were walking away from a heritage. They were rejecting something that might have elevated them, united them with greatness, and given their lives purpose beyond cheap pleasures. But they didn't notice it. No, they were too preoccupied with the next thrill, diversion, or useless indulgence that made them feel important for a short time, but left them empty for good. And now they live in the aftermath of their own devastation. When you are selected and have a divine purpose, your presence is more than a gift. It is a generational transition. You don't merely develop relationships. You construct empires. You don't simply express love. You provide elevation. And the individuals you're related to, they do not merely receive affection. They get access to a greater calling. But they toss everything away. For what? A brief sensation, a meaningless moment of pleasure. The insufficient affirmation of someone who will never compare to you. They believed they were winning, getting away with it, and ensuring something better. But desire does not build. It just burns. It consumes everything in its path, leaving only ashes. And now they're sitting in the ruins, gazing at the empty space where something wonderful might have stood. Because what they shared with you was more than simply love and camaraderie. It was purpose. That was alignment. That was the kind of connection that affects bloodlines, realities, and destiny. But they weren't thinking about fate. They were thinking about cheap thrills. They weren't thinking about collaborating with you. They were thinking about selfishly indulging in whatever was simplest and most readily accessible. Whatever fueled their ego at the moment. They did more than just betray you. They betrayed their own future. Because selected ones have a greater effect than simply their life. They have an influence over generations. They might have stood by your side while you created, prospered, and progressed towards something more than the two of you. Instead, they fled to observe from the outside, understanding much too late that the door they slammed shut is the same one they now beg to pass through. But legacy does not wait. Purpose does not wait for idiots who cannot perceive its significance. You didn't stop moving simply because they took a risky decision. No, you kept building. You continued expanding. You continued to identify yourself with something larger. And now you're untouchable to them. They see you now, standing strong, marching purposefully, gleaming with something they will never have again. And they feel the loss in ways they can't articulate. They notice the difference. They see the difference between what they picked and what they might have had. And the worst part? They are unable to reverse it. There is no apology powerful enough to replace what they have ruined. There is no easy way to regain the access they gave up. They created their bed, and now they must rot in it. And believe me, it's rotting. They exchanged gold for junk, and now they have to deal with the repercussions. And you're finished. Looking back, you were not supposed to be an option. It was never designed to be a temporary cure. Never intended to be one of many. You were the first, the last, the one that does not appear twice. And now? They now know. But knowing doesn't mean they'll have another opportunity. Because legacy does not go back. When you lose it forever. Seventh, you were their mirror. They broke it to avoid confronting the reality. People do not dislike mirrors. They despise the mirror looking back at them. They believe they wanted the truth. They said they respected honesty. But what they truly want? Comfort. Lies that would allow them to remain. Small reasons to avoid work. As well as diversions to protect people from confronting their true selves. And then you strode in, unapologetic and anchored. You were not playing a part. You were not modifying yourself to fit in. You were precisely what they said to be real. That was the issue, since your presence did more than merely encourage them. It exposed them. You became the mirror. They were unable to flee. A mirror of everything they were terrified to face. Your confidence shattered their self-doubt. Your compassion made their resentment difficult to ignore. Your progress made their immobility seem like quicksand. And instead of rising to the challenge, looking in the mirror and choosing to progress, they decided to despise you for it. They reacted negatively not because you mistreated them, but because you showed what was wrong with them. Every time they stood next to you, they felt the burden of their own limits, worries, and failures. That resulted in fire. So, what did they do? They did what cowards usually do. They assaulted the mirror rather than repairing the reflection. They attempted to break you. They whispered. They sabotaged. They turned your benevolence into something terrible. All because confronting the truth was more difficult than destroying the person who revealed it to them. But here's what they didn't understand. Breaking the mirror does not alter the reality. They believed that eliminating you from their lives would offer them serenity. But all it did was leave them alone with the monsters they were attempting to flee. Mirrors do not exist only outside of you. You can't go back after seeing the truth. And now, they are now sitting in their own agony. They expected their lives to feel lighter without you. But instead, it seems empty. They felt that suppressing your voice would alleviate their self-doubt. But today, it is louder than ever. They assumed you were the issue, but they're starting to realize the issue is always with them. And you were never their adversary. You were their wake-up call. They refused to take the call. Allow them to battle with their own reflections. Allow them to deal with the repercussions of avoiding their own development. Because of you are done shrinking for those who are afraid of their own potential. Eighth, they chose fire over refuge. They are now engulfed by their own flames. Some people do not desire peace. They want devastation. And when they ultimately burn everything nice in their lives, they stand amid the wreckage, claiming they have no idea how the fire began. You weren't simply love. You weren't simply faithful. You were more than simply steadiness. You were the equilibrium. They never remained calm. They never knew where they might be secure without being questioned. Instead of hanging on to it, they went into chaos. It wasn't better. It was just simpler. See? To stand next to you, they would have needed to grow. They would have needed to heal. They would have had to confront themselves. And that was too much labor. Instead of accepting the foundation you provided, they chose dysfunction. They reverted to harmful behaviors, risky judgments, and a life that did not compel them to improve. Because it is the truth they refused to acknowledge. They didn't abandon you because you weren't enough. They departed because they weren't sufficient for you. And now they're drowning in the same disaster they picked over you. They believed anarchy meant freedom until it turned against them. Until the same games they played began to play them. Until the same betrayals they had been used to arrived at their own door. And the same instability they had fled became the one thing that kept them up at night. And you went onward. You recovered. You achieved a higher level. You've recovered your calm. And they remained trapped in the same patterns, repeating the same cycles with various faces and locations, but with the same unhappy consequences. Because it is the consequence of choosing devastation over stability. It doesn't simply harm others. It will ultimately swallow you. They believed they were escape responsibility. They believed they were fleeing responsibilities. But all they did was rush directly into their own demise. And now they sit there, choked by the repercussions of their own choices, reliving the past. Realizing too late that you were not the issue. You were the answer. You were not holding them back. You held them together. And without you, they're just where they belong. Lost. Allow them to drown in the choices they chose. Allow them to dwell in the storm they made. Allow them to observe from a distance while you flourish in the tranquility they once had but were too blind to realize. Because of you, you were never designed to help someone who was intent on self-destruction. Number 9. They believe they could change the tale without you. They're no longer in control of their own fate. Some individuals might not aware they are standing next to a masterpiece until they are shut out of the museum. They played a role in your trip, an actual location. They weren't just extras in the background, not simply fleeting faces passing by. No, they were supposed to develop with you, stand by you as a part of something larger. They tossed it aside. They felt you needed them. They believed they could step over you, betray you, or walk away while still being part of the winning tale. They assumed you were merely a phase, just another fleeting moment in time that would be forgotten after they had moved on. But you were more than just a chapter. You were the whole dang book. And now, they're now caught outside of the plot they were supposed to be in, observing from a distance. As you develop, as you win, you make something famous without them. They did not immediately feel it. They celebrated. I thought they made the proper decision. I thought they were better off. I thought they could do better than you. Then time began speaking. Now they see it. They recognize that you were more than simply another person in their lives. You were the shift. The game changer is the chance. They were too blind to recognize. The cruelest part, they can't go back. See, certain doors do not reopen. Some exits don't include a return ticket. Certain betrayals are irreversible. And they wrote themselves out of your future with their decisions. They're now caught in the past, which no longer fits, watching you ascend while they remain still, realizing too late that they didn't just lose you. They lost all that you brought with you. Your favor, knowledge, protection, and vitality. They assumed you were disposable. They now know you weren't. Here's the part. What haunts them the most? You didn't just live without them. You thrived. They expected you to struggle, break apart, and fail. But instead, you became stronger, smarter, and untouchable. And the higher you get, the further distant that remorse becomes. It is a slow poison. It's waking up every day knowing they could have been a part of something incredible. However, they made the incorrect choice. They are now outsiders, strangers in a future they were meant to be a part of. Let them watch. Allow them to feel remorse. Allow them to sit in solitude, reflecting on their own decisions. Because of you, you were never the one to lose anything. Number 10. They didn't just lose you. They lost track of who you become. You cannot betray someone and then expect to meet them where you left them. Life doesn't operate that way. People develop. Doors shut. And once locked, they do not reopen. When they walked away, they assumed they were making a pointless decision. They thought they could go, consider their choices, and return anytime they wanted. They expected you'd always be present waiting, unchanged, frozen in time, but they didn't comprehend you were never stationary. You were maturing, changing, and morphing into someone they would no longer recognize as they walked out. That version of yourself no longer exists. Every second they were gone from you, you became stronger. Every betrayal, grief, each moment of uncertainty, you transformed it into gasoline. While they were playing games, you were leveling up while they were distracted. You were creating something genuine. And now they're hammering on a closed door, attempting to get back in, only to find that the key no longer fits. See, when they went away, they didn't just lose access to you. They lost access to everything. You have become the knowledge you have received, the power you have developed, the success you have achieved, and the irony. That was the version they needed the most. They tossed away a work in progress, believing they knew the end result and could abandon you while still benefiting from your development. But this is not how life works. You cannot walk away from brilliance and expect to bask in its warmth. The person they once knew, the one who put up with their stupidity and forgave them too quickly, the person who donated without limit, she's gone. They will never have access to the current version of you. Now they sit in remorse, watching from a distance, hoping they could go back in time. But they can't because you won't retreat. You do not reopen closed doors. You don't entertain the monsters you battled so hard to overcome. They made their decision, and now they have to deal with it. You were a godsend. They miscalculated a present. They abused a precious jewel, mistaking it for ordinary. And now, they've realized it. Too late. So, let them watch. Let them ponder. Allow them to feel remorse. Because of you, you've moved on to larger things. Number 11. They felt betraying you was simply another option. Now it is a life sentence. Some errors vanish with time. Others follow you like shadows, whispering, "What if?" until your last breath. They assumed they were just making one choice. Just one bet. They believed that deciding against you was a little, insignificant event in their lives. They had no clue that a single decision would become the burden they would bear for the rest of their lives. Because this is what they did not grasp. Your value was never debatable. Your worth was not dependent on their acceptance. Your future was not in their control. You were never just an option. You represented the potential to develop, progress, and move into something better. They tossed it aside. For what? An inexpensive joy, a brief victory, a moment of ego. They exchanged riches for dust, devotion for deception, and a masterpiece for a disaster. And at the time, it seemed like nothing. They laughed. They celebrated. They persuaded themselves that they had won. But what? They hadn't realized they weren't betting against you. They were betting against themselves. And now they have lost. They lost the tranquility they had taken for granted, the brightness you brought into their world. The doors were opening merely because of your presence. They didn't just betray you. They betrayed the future. They may have if they had made a different choice. Regret is not a fleeting thought. It is a sickness. It infects the mind, rewinds time in slow motion, and pushes you to repeat your greatest errors. And today, it is their reality. Because of you, you didn't just go on, you achieved a higher level. They assumed you'd fall apart without them. Instead, you were unstoppable. They assumed your absence would make no difference. Rather, it bothers them every day. They believed they could simply replace you. Instead, they discovered that you were one of one. They're trapped watching your shine from a distance, knowing they'll never be able to stand in your light again. They are compelled to see your success as they fall further into the mess they caused. Worst of all, they have no control over the situation. They'll attempt to block out the remorse, but it won't work. They will pursue diversions, but the truth will always come to them. They will attempt to persuade themselves that they do not care. But hearing your name hurts. Every time they watch you triumph, it burns. Because remorse is not limited to what they have lost. It's about what they may have been with you. They had a road to development, power, and achievement. They had someone who believed in them. Someone saw their potential. Someone who would have supported them through it all. But they tossed it away. And now they're stuck with the version of themselves that made that decision. The weaker, lesser, insecure version that lacked the bravery to expand. The version that believed playing games was more essential than creating anything tangible. The version in which they gambled against their own future and lost. Certain errors may be reversed. This is not one of them. And you don't even need to do anything. Life handles them for you. Their karma represents their remorse. Their penalty is knowing they had something uncommon, pure, and priceless. They demolished it with their own hands. That's the trouble about being picked. Your absence is more noticeable than your presence ever was. Allow them to sit with it. Allow them to grapple with it. Allow them to feel the weight of every decision they make. Because of you, you've already won. Number 12. They didn't just lose you. They squandered their own future. Some individuals don't understand they're sabotaging their own future until too late. But by the time they see the damage, the door has already been shut, and you're gone forever. They felt letting you go was simply another option. They saw betraying you as simply another step in their selfish game. They assumed they could cut you off, walk away, and proceed as if nothing had occurred. The collapse, however, was something they never saw coming. Because they didn't just lose you. They lost everything connected to you. Your presence was more than simply a piece of their existence. It was the same basis that kept them steady. Wisdom, calm, protection, and opportunity. Everything walked out the door with you. They did not just betray a person. They betrayed their own destiny, since all they might have been was dependent on the version of themselves who stood by you. And now, they now have to live with it. At first, they didn't feel it. Some even celebrated. They were certain they'd made the proper decision. They surrounded themselves with diversions, looked for inexpensive substitutes, and told themselves they had advanced. But time exposes everything. The illusions fell one by one. The phony pals vanished. The hollow thrills have lost their attraction. The joy of betraying you faded into nothingness. And reality struck them like a hurricane they hadn't seen coming. Because here's the deal. You were not the issue. You were the solution. You were the one who improved their thinking. You were the one who pushed them to greatness. You were the one who provided them serenity in the midst of pandemonium. And now, they're now stuck with who they actually are. No counsel, no protection, no knowledge, and no favor. They used to glow not because of who they were, but because they were standing near your light. And now I'm left alone. They are suffering in the darkness they created. They believe they'd outgrown you. It turns out they were shrinking without you. That's the cost of hubris. That is the cost of betraying someone assigned to help you develop. Some errors can be corrected. Certain bridges can be reconstructed. But not this one. Certain losses are irreversible. They'll attempt to pretend they don't care. They'll pretend they don't notice the absence. But you know the truth. They sense it whenever they struggle with something you used to make simple. They feel that every time they turn around and realize they don't have any true support. They feel it every time they watch you triumph from a distance, knowing they'll never get to see that side of you again. And the worst part? They're grieving more than simply your death. They're grieving the loss of who they might have become if they had made a different decision. Because that's the issue with selected ones. When you enter someone's life, you offer them the potential to grow into something bigger. You weren't just a human. You were a pathway, a route to development, healing, and elevation. They rejected it. So, as you construct a future full of purpose, power, and everything they previously had, they're stranded on the sidelines. And it is their karma, nor vengeance, nor punishment. Just the plain, incontrovertible truth. They squandered a once-in-a-lifetime chance. They'll spend years, if not a lifetime, reflecting on that moment and decision, understanding they made the biggest mistake of their lives. But you aren't looking back. You are on the rise. You are prospering. You're about to embark on a journey that is uniquely yours. Without them. And this is precisely as it should be. Number 13. They chose a shortcut. They're now stranded at a dead end. Some individuals want achievement without strife, riches without effort, and loyalty without dedication. However, shortcuts never lead to true destinations. Only dead ends. They believed they were being clever. They thought they were better at the game than you, while you were grinding, improving, and constructing something substantial. They were seeking for the easiest way out. Why put forth the effort if they could scam the system? Why respect what is genuine when they may pursue what is quick, showy, and counterfeit? They believed they had outsmarted it. You believed they could steal from you, betray you, and leave you behind while still winning. But that isn't how reality works, since shortcuts usually wind up costing more. And now they're experiencing it. The simple road they picked led them right into a trap. The individuals they fled to were never designed to endure. They ended up playing the games. They felt they could cut shortcuts and yet come out ahead. However, avoiding the labor prevents you from receiving the prize. And now, while you've been rising, they're falling. They exchanged loyalty for treachery. They chose fleeting pleasure over long-term stability. They mistaken opportunity for responsibility. And now it is gone. Worst of all, they're aware that they caused their own harm. So here's the thing about true success. Real tranquility. Real happiness. It is earned. It's constructed brick by brick, with patience, honesty, and sacrifice. There are no quick cuts to greatness. And while others cut shortcuts, you laid the groundwork. Now they're watching from the sidelines, motionless, stagnant, and caught in the same. They believe they could flee. And every day, they understand the reality. You did not lose them. They have lost you. They felt they could return. They thought they could get back to the path they had abandoned. But certain routes do not allow you to turn back. And you've gotten too far ahead now. Their remorse is their imprisonment. Their previous decisions are the shackles around their ankles. They want instant results, but never willing to do the effort. They're now paying the price for taking shortcuts, which never lead to success. They simply cause regret. And you chose the long, hard route, which challenged but also altered you. You created something genuine while they pursued delusions. And now, they now see it. Allow them to sit at their dead end. Allow them to battle with their faults. Allow them to understand that what they threw away was the only true thing they ever possessed. Because of you, you are still soaring. Number 14. They exchanged loyalty for falsehoods. Now they're drowning in remorse. Betrayal resembles a debt. It will have to be paid eventually. And regret. That is the interest they will pay for the rest of their lives. They had everything. Your trust, loyalty, presence, and energy. Someone stood by them. Someone showed up. Someone who sincerely wanted to see them succeed. So, what did they do with that? They squandered it away. For what? For falsehoods. For illusions. For hollow promises. They believed they were intelligent. They thought they were playing a game, pulling the cords, controlling the result. They persuaded themselves that unfaithful allegiance would result in no repercussions, that they could deceive you, go unhurt, and yet triumph. But life does not work that way. Loyalty is not replaced, and once lost, it's gone forever. Now, they have nothing but the truth, the fact they worked so hard to escape, because this is something they never saw coming. You weren't just another individual in their lives. You were the foundation, the security, the uncommon gift they never earned in the first place. You gave them opportunities. You gave them grace. You remained for longer than you should have, and they mistook this for weakness. They assumed you were oblivious to the deceit. I thought you'd never find out. They thought they could keep you close while secretly betraying you. They didn't comprehend that the selected ones always see the truth. Even it is exposed. Your insight is unrivaled. Your talent to interpret energy is unstoppable. And when you ultimately went away, you did not just leave them behind. You left them to cope with themselves. Now they are here in the aftermath of their decisions, gazing at the wreckage of what might have been. Worst of all, the falsehoods they bargained you for were ultimately useless. The folks with whom they allied have left. They believed that some conditions were better. Empty. They anticipated a future without you. A nightmare. They didn't just lose you. They have lost the greatest version of themselves. Because you were more than simply a person in their lives. You were the one who provided purpose, who brought the vision, who motivated them to become greater. And now, without you, they are lost, drowning. I am choking on remorse, because loyalty is more than just a word. It serves as a medium of exchange, and they wasted all of their money on something worthless. And you did not lose anything. They did. They believed replacing you would be simple. They thought they could go on as if nothing had occurred. They thought they could find another you, but they're learning the hard way. You were one of one. The saddest part, they will never confess it. Oh, they will pretend. They'll behave as if they don't care, like they made the proper decision, as if they have no regrets. But deep inside, they know. Every night, when the distractions vanish, when the hubbub quiets down, they may sense it when they are alone with their thoughts. That slot is empty. That voids the loss, because treachery has a way of returning full circle. And now they're locked in the anguish they sought to cause you. But here's the deal. You don't even care anymore. You are beyond it. You've recovered. You have created something stronger, greater, and untouchable. As they sit in remorse, you are going ahead as others observe from a distance. You are prospering, and it is what bothers them most. They expected you to fall apart. Instead, you were unstoppable. They believed they had the power. Instead, you walked away, carrying everything with you. They believed their falsehoods would ruin you. Instead, they ruined themselves. And that is the cost of trading for falsehoods. And here we are. The dust had settled. The truth has been exposed. And they are left with just their own remorse. They will have to pay this loan for the rest of their lives. You were a godsend. They misunderstood the lighting. They attempted to diminish the allegiance they betrayed. But in the end, you prevailed. Not through vengeance or resentment, but by growing, flourishing, and leaving them behind. If this speaks to your soul, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave 77 in the comments. Share this with someone who might benefit from this message. Your light is irresistible. Keep glowing.